Friends, hello and welcome back. Hope everyone is having a lovely day. So, an interesting trade here, to say the very least. I mean, you look on the surface, and right off the bat, first thing that comes to my mind is like, how don't you get a first-round draft pick back? A guaranteed first-round draft pick for Jake Guentzel. This is a 35-40 goal scorer, a proven player. How don't you get that back when the rumors were saying, hey, Capo Caco and a first from the Rangers, Vancouver looking to move, some pretty big pieces. You've seen some rumors. And that's what they was. There was rumors. And you wonder how much of that was true, how much of that was fluff, how much even could that have been the Penguins leaking things to try to up his price. And that's where you kind of really dive deep into this potential or put together trade, because you need to say, hey, Jake Guentzel, he is on IR. Sure, he could come back soon, but you never know about setbacks. There's always the gamble, there's always the risk. Carolina wasn't able to negotiate a contract before the trade. They're obviously in hopes they can, once he's here settled in, he'll want to talk about an extension. But because of that, again, we're talking about a rental. But at the end of the day, you got to feel like this guy's coming back pretty confident when you're making a trade. And you say, hey, how do you not get a first-round draft pick? I don't know about that one. Now it's got me going. I think it's because the Penguins, they're tied down on Michael Bunting. Michael Bunting, who, by the way, let's call it what it is. He was a John Tavares, Austin Matthews June bug. He was a guy that might put, he could still do it. He could still drop 20 goals on a season, whatever. But that would he probably will with Crosby and Malkin. But make no mistake about it, his numbers were inflated because of who he played with. And I think Carolina was like, all right, we got to move him off the book. If that's what you want. I mean, it moves off, $4.5 million anyway. Obviously, he was playing for Carolina. He's an impactful player for Carolina. And all that being said, though, he was a roster guy. He was a guy, second, third line minutes for this team. That costs you. So that's going to hurt the value of Jake Guentzel because the Penguins wanted to go that direction. I think that's where you stop and say, okay, that was it. Yeah, you say what you will about Bunting, but if the Carolina would just trade him straight up to a team, they might have got a second or third for him, right? And that's the thing that immediately impacts the Jake Guentzel trade value. And then you bring in Koivunen and you bring in Ponomarev, couple guys, second round draft picks respectively themselves as well in the past year. Playing across seas, playing in the AHL. We'll see what they do. And I think that's something about this trade we can initially judge how we want to judge it. But at the end of the day, Ty Smith coming over, by the way. How's Ty Smith these days? Ty Smith's 23. I remember he was first round draft pick back in the day. Hasn't really come together, obviously. But you look at this trade and say, you really won't fully know what, how this turns out for the Penguins, because they did. They traded for two prospects and a potential draft pick. They're just hoping, and I think this is the way they went about it. It's like, we're hoping one of these guys can turn out. More interesting, a turn of the page for the Penguins. And that's where it gets confusing with the Penguins. It feels like they're trying not to let go, but they got to let go. They ink Carlson to that big contract. They ink Dimitri to that long big contract, but you're not making playoffs with that core of Malkin and Crosby right now, and they're just getting older and older. Letang just getting older and older. You either got to start tearing down the castle, or you got to try to stick with what you have. And if you're going to try to win games now, Guentzel was the piece. So I thought that was interesting to see Penguins moving on from him from that perspective, because it feels like they're kind of in that middle pack ground where they're like, oh, we don't want to rebuild, but we know we can't keep all these players, but at the same time we don't want to rebuild. So they're kind of in that middle phase, which, sorry to say it, Penguins fans, but that middle phase usually is what ends up in 4 or 5 years into a full blown rebuild. And then you're talking another 4 or 5 years until you're a serious contender again. It might be a while. Because even now with the way they're playing, Crosby's still pretty solid for how old he is, playing pretty well. But meanwhile, over in Carolina making a big move here. You add some goal scoring to this team. You add a dynamic player to this team. You bring in Ty Smith, who again, former first round draft pick. If we're talking about it, low prospect action for themselves. We're obviously missing Lucius in this trade as well. You can only fit 5 players in here. But we're going to go ahead and see what EA thinks of this. Let's see if EA is like, hey, you know what? It's a trade worth taking. We're going to have to throw on a really valuable player because of the system set up here at the game, but it shouldn't matter. Just somebody with the lowest trade value possible, just to see if it goes through, and it will not. According to EA, again, Carolina was never going to get that trade to go through. So according to EA, Carolina walked away as losers or winners in this trade. Guentzel, Pittsburgh walked away as losers again. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. It could have very well been, hey, bunch of rumors, leak this, leak that. boost his trade value, but it was never there. But I find it hard to believe because during the trade deadline, especially a guy of Jake Guentzel's talent, there's very few times that you see these guys come around, and I don't know how you don't walk away with the first. Again, Carolina, that's saying Carolina doesn't make the Stanley Cup Finals. They make the finals, they walk around to the first. If not, they're getting a late second because it's going to be a Flyer second round draft pick. So we'll see what happens there. Nonetheless, I'd love to y'all's thoughts. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time.